Hello, my name is Dale Dennis, and I am a calligrapher. And calligraphy is an art form and a style of writing that is not as common anymore, perhaps, but there has been a renewed surge of interest in it. And so I have tried to bring some of my knowledge of the art of calligraphy to others by doing this series of videos. So today we're going to continue on. This is episode number 2. If you haven't seen episode number 1 yet, you can go to the Woodland TV website, where you can also download my sample alphabet, and you can find episode 1 of calligraphy there and watch it so that you'll be caught up on everything, and then you can go and watch episode 2 once you're finished with episode 1. So then hopefully you'll be up to speed, and we'll be able to continue on. So last time we talked first about technique and then form. Technique being the way that you hold a calligraphy pen when you're getting ready to write calligraphy, and the second being form, which is the shape of the alphabet characters. So technique and form are the two items to be aware of and to practice on. Doing calligraphy well does take a lot of practice. It's like learning to write all over again. If you have any samples that your mother kept for you of your early school days, you can go back and look at them and see how atrocious your writing was in second grade, like mine was, because my mother did keep something, and I was a little embarrassed about it, but it taught me that learning to write and write well and write neatly is a talent or a skill that is developed over time. And the same with calligraphy. The more you practice, the better you'll be able to get. I have been doing this for many, many years, multiple decades, and so I've had a lot of practice, and I hope that it shows. So we'll go into kind of continuing where we left off. So we had done a number of letters in the Old English alphabet. We started with A, B, and C. We did the letter D, and then we also did I, because it's the backbone piece of letters like B and D. And then we jumped ahead and we did the letter Z, I think. No, we didn't. Maybe we didn't do Z. We did do the letter X. That was the one. We did the letter X, and then the letter S, and the letter W. All of the capitals for those. So that's where we're going to start from. If you need reminding or refreshing on any of how those letters were made, you can always go to the website and pull up that episode number 1 of calligraphy and rewatch how those letters were made. And the nice thing is you can pause it and back it up a little bit and review that as many times as you need to see how it's done. So so let's move on. We're going to start with doing the letter E, since that's the next one in the alphabet that we're going to come to. And actually I'm going to do E and F at once, because when we start off to do an E, we're going to have the I, the backbone piece here to start with. Okay, just like that. And then to do the letter E, we're going to go up and do a little peak and a swoop, a little half wave, and then we'll do, in the middle, we'll do an up and a half wave, kind of the same piece, maybe not quite as tall. And if I was to add an embellishment line here, this would be the letter F. So we could finish right now and have the letter F. To do the letter E, we just add another one of these down at the bottom, and then the embellishment line comes straight down through like that. Again, the letter F is simply leaving off that bottommost piece, like so. And so that's E and F. Now the next letter is G, and G is one where we go back to the techniques that we talked about with the letter C, where we're doing circles or parts of circles. So to do the letter G, we're going to start by doing kind of a big, almost like a 6, but it's not going to close all the way, okay? It's not going to close here. We're just going to keep it open there, because up at the top, we're going to, just like with the C, we're going to add this little rooftop and swoop down. And then we have a line that comes straight down. It's going to intersect with the end of this 6 piece and then go straight down like so. And then we're going to add some embellishment lines through the middle of that bubble at the bottom. And that is the letter G. Okay. So now let's look at the letter H. So the letter H is going to, for the most part, start with something that looks like the I. In fact, it will be just like the I. But up at the top, instead of just leaving this as it is, at the very top, we're going to add a little wave to it, okay? And then in the middle, we're going to go up and down with a half wave, like so. And then straight down to a little swoop at the bottom. And then we add embellishment lines, a vertical one and then 2 angled ones that come up into the top of the H, okay? So that's a good look at the letter H. The little piece at the top of the H is kind of an add-on just to give it a little bit of its own character and you know, make it look nice. Okay, and then I, of course, was the one that we're basing a lot of the backbones of these letters on. Very easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and erase my G and H for the moment. I'm going to leave the I there because the next letter, J, is almost like the I, but when we come down, instead of stopping here at the baseline where we would stop most letters, we're going to keep going and do a little bit of a descender. It's going to go underneath the baseline a little bit and wrap around into this hook. And then we'll add the same little pieces that we do for the I, and that's the letter J. Very easy to do that. Now, you do not have to come down below the line if you don't want to, below the baseline. You can bring that just to the, right to the baseline if you want. This one's just a little bit lower than that one. This one's maybe not quite down at the baseline. It's probably still just a little low. But you don't have to go all the way down as long as it has the nice hook so that it looks like either a J or a fish hook. So however you like to do your J. Okay. And that will bring us to the letter K. So the letter K is also going to start with the backbone piece, the I. Okay, and then from the middle, we're going to make a line that goes up at an angle, at our narrow angle, and then at the very top, we're just going to add a little half of a wave swoop to it, and then we'll do a nice swoop down below to finish it off. Okay, so that is the capital K. L is fairly simple, but it has a little variation on the I, though. Instead of coming down and doing the flip back that we do with the letter I, on the letter L, we're going to start here just back where we would probably end with the other piece, and we're going to just do a long arching curve that should barely meet with the bottom of our back piece. Okay, and then we're going to add a pair of little half waves in the middle and an embellishment line coming down through it like so. So that's the letter L. Very pretty much straightforward to do for that one. And again, if you have trouble with any of these letters, you can watch how I make them repeatedly, and and practice them is the biggest thing. One thing that a lot of my students like to do to help them out when they're working with a calligraphy pen for the first few times is they like to get a piece of tracing paper and put that over the top of the sample alphabet. If you print that out, then you can put the tracing paper over the sample alphabet and trace over the letters, and that helps to give you the proper form and learn the technique at the same time. Okay, now last time we did do the letter M because I was trying to demonstrate how you do the M and how it's different from the W. So today I'm going to just skip past M and we'll go to N. So N will also start with the I, with the backbone piece, like so. And we could do this kind of boring and make it just like the one half of the rest of the M, but I like to make it look a little different, give it its own style. So we just come up with a nice bubble over the top and then down and swoop it at the bottom. And it'll kind of curve inward a little bit towards the bottom. Then we can add some embellishment lines to it, and that makes a very nice looking N. Okay. I'm going to skip ahead for a minute and do the letter P, because that again also starts with the backbone piece, and then it's going to have a bubble that's just like the top one on the B, except it'll have a little backflip on it because we're not going to go any lower with that. And then we can add embellishment lines to the P, just like so. All right. Now you might think, because the letter R will be next, we're going to jump over Q for a moment. But the letter R might just be adding a little swoop onto this. But I do my R a bit different because I want them to be identifiable for what they are. Get it for what they are. So here's our backbone piece, and we do our little bubble at the top. We don't want to do the little backflip this time because we're going to do a little swoop piece downward, just like we did for the K. And then we'll add an embellishment line coming down parallel to the backbone piece. We are not going to put the two vertical or angled lines in the top of the R because we want these to be easily distinguished between each other. So if we leave those embellishment lines out, then there's no chance that anybody's going to be confused or think that one is one and the other is the other. Okay. Now last week we talked about S. So we're going to skip over that for the moment. And for the time being, I'm also going to skip over T because it's another one of the letters that will use the curved pieces, kind of like C and G and O do. And you might wonder, how is that possible? If you've ever looked at an Old English alphabet and looked at a T, like most any newspaper that has a Times in their name and they use an Old English font, you'll see why. But we're going to move ahead for the moment, and we're going to do the letters U and V. So to do the letter U, we're going to start with kind of like the way we started with the W, not having the full backbone of the I. And then we're going to do a little swoop downward, kind of like what we did for the W. It'll look very similar. But then we're going to put a back piece on it. It just comes down slightly and then straight down so that they join right there. And we'll add a couple of half arcs onto the left side of it and embellishment lines in the middle. Okay? And so that's the letter U. And the letter V is going to be a little different. Well, it'll sort of start out the same. But when we make this part of the V, we can actually keep going around from here and do our swoop going upwards, or you can start at the top and come down and bring it so that it meets the first piece. If I can, I usually like to do the upward swoop just because then I'm sure that that's going to look like it's all one piece. If you try to do it two separate pieces, you may have what looks like a little junction there that you won't like as well. And then we do the two little half pieces there, and then the embellishment line for the V is going to go on the opposite side from what it does on the U. And then we have the two angled pieces in here as well. Okay, but it has enough differences in its characteristics that we don't have to differentiate it like we do between R and P, even though that shouldn't really be an issue. But just in terms of balance, the R doesn't look as good with those little lines in the bubble. The U and the V kind of look naked without the little angled lines. So that's why we keep them in there. All right. So that's U and V. We did W and X. So let's try Y. Y because we like you. Okay, so here's the Y. And again, it starts just kind of like the U and the V did, and the W. And we're going to start with the little swoopy piece. And then we're going to add a little backbone piece, almost like we did with the U. But when we get down here to where we join it, we're going to swing around in a nice little swirl that wraps all the way around itself. Okay? Then we can add a couple of the little arc pieces. I should probably do that ahead of time so I don't smear it with my hand when I'm using these markers. But if I'm careful, we can still do it this way. So again, embellishment lines, similar to what you had for the U, will be added onto the Y. And again, this character should definitely be a descender. So in other words, whatever your baseline is for your writing, the tail of the Y needs to definitely come down underneath. Okay. So now let's try the letter Z. Z for Zorro. For the Z, we'll just have a couple of these pairs of horizontal wave pieces connected by a diagonal line, and then we can add a short one in the middle to give it a capital flare. Because the lowercase Z is going to look very similar, but we won't put the little cross piece in lowercase just to be able to distinguish the two very easily. Okay, so that's the letter Z. So now we need to back up so that we can do some of these other letters that I've jumped past. We did G. We didn't do O yet. So we're going to come back and do O, Q, and T. I think those are the ones that are outstanding. So O is going to start as a circle that comes around, and I may have shown this before because it doesn't quite meet here at the top. So yeah, we probably did do the O last time, but a refresher doesn't hurt. So we complete the O with the line down and then just slightly down to the angle on the bottom, and then add the embellishment lines to it. Now a Q is going to be based on this O. A lot of Old English alphabets will not base the Q on the O. I think a Q is naturally based on an O. So when we make this downward line, instead of doing the down and to the right angle, we're going to do a little swooping line that extends all the way through the circle to give it that Q effect. And then we can add our embellishment lines to it as well. Okay, so there's the letter Q. And then, last but not least, is the letter T. So with the letter T, it's going to have a top piece that's kind of a long wave, but we start with this little loopy piece at the beginning. Again, this is just a design element. You can do just a swirl like that at the top if you like that. I like to add this little curl here just because it looks nice, and that's the way they did it on the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so we're going to add a half circle just like we did for the letter C. And I'm kind of messing things up there. Okay, and then right in the middle of the top piece will come down and to the left just a little bit, and then straight down, and then at the bottom down and to the right. So we wind up with a piece that has angles on both the top and the bottom, and then we add an embellishment line through to tie that all together. And that's the capital T. Okay. So I think we've covered all of the capital letters in the alphabet. I can't think of any that I missed. So now we want to talk a little bit about lowercase letters. Now, you might wonder, well, what could be so difficult about lowercase letters? Well, they're not that difficult, but they do still require some practice. All of the lowercase letters, or the majority of the lowercase letters, I should say, are based on variations on a box. Okay? And what I mean by that is you're going to have a top piece that looks like this. You're going to have side pieces that look like this, and you have a bottom piece that looks like that. And you can mix these up and arrange them in different ways or do different things with them. When you put all these together, you have a lowercase o. Okay? Then if you want to do a lowercase c, you just leave off the right side. So again, just variations on a box. If we do the B, we're going to start off with a long piece here, and then we'll add that part of the box to it that we saw. With the letter D, there's a lot of different ways to make the back on a D. I kind of like this style. You can pick up another version if you like it. This is kind of a classic variation on the D from a lot of Old English alphabetic styles. So it's a good way to go. Okay, then let's add one more up here. We're going to do one more letter. This is the letter C again, but we're going to just draw a line down at an angle, and now it's an E. Okay, so again, variations on a box. So I'm going to back up here just for a second, and I'm going to show you the letter A. Now the letter A is a little bit more of a variation on the box. It has, instead of the little peak like these other letters have at the top, except for the D, it just has a gentle wave. And then we have a straight piece that comes down, does a little bit of a hook at the bottom. Then about halfway along the top piece, we're going to come down with an angular piece to just about where that top piece starts. Then we're going to come straight down, and then we'll add the bottom piece to it. And again, variations on a box. It's still got like 2/3 of it. We just alter the top a little bit to make it look more like an A. Okay, so that's A, B, C, D, and E, and O. Now there are a lot of lowercase letters that will need their own kind of practice. One of these is F. So if we start on the F, you just do kind of a little half loop there, and then a line that comes down a little bit and then curves and comes down to the bottom. You can do a little serif on the bottom like so, and then a kind of a half wave through the middle. That makes a nice F. You can also come down to the bottom and swerve it just to the left a little bit there, and then kind of arch it around and make it look very stylish. If you have a pair of Fs, it's kind of nice to do the two of them together like so, and then you can bring this around and loop it through and do both of the cross pieces at once connected to this same loop. So a few variations on doing the letter F. It can be a lot of fun, and you can play with that and toy with it until you find something that you like too. Okay. So we'll finish off one more letter here. Going to just do the lowercase g really quick. Again, variations on a box. We got our box to this point, and when we come down, we're just going to keep going and do a little loop underneath, and that's the letter G. Okay, well, we're out of time for today's episode, so we'll come back with another episode where we finish up on the lowercase letters, and we'll talk about numbers. So thank you for joining me today. I'm very happy to have you here and have this opportunity to give you some instruction on calligraphy. Thank you.